Hello and welcome to Backlinking, the PKM podcast. In today's podcast episode, we are diving a little bit into the philosophy behind new Tana. I'm not going to show you the new Tana in today's video and go through it and everything because I haven't had enough time to play around with it. I have played around with it a little bit, and I will just, for those of you watching, I will just quickly bring it up on the screen so you can see how it looks. But I want to talk more about the philosophy behind it and why I think they are on the right track. And I also want to spend a little bit of time talking about my own productivity system. So let's start off with the new Tana, which is heavily around meetings, but it can also be used without having too many meetings. So I have actually set up a couple of things. So I have a personal assistant and a social media management assistant. So I am playing around with this. There is a lot of things to keep in mind with this new Tana experience. The editor isn't really that good, so I'm not generally a big fan of the editor here. Don't like it, and I think that is something they are working on improving. So that is the first thing. This is still an early access product. The second thing is that the new Tana places itself as like a competitor, or not necessarily a competitor, but an alternative to using uh, this system of markdown files and agents. You could probably use both, but if you are a really heavy user and like the Tana pricing, early access pricing is around 20 for the cheapest plan. So it's 20 for the early bird. I am considering the max plan if I continue to like it as I've done, but more about that later. And with that, you get things like on the max plan, you get things like unlimited agents, skills, and types. You get 5 times more AI than Pro. So very, very similar to what you see in the pricing of things like Claude or OpenAI's ChatGPT. That is like where they are trying to place themselves as sort of an alternative. You could probably use both, but that would become really expensive really quickly. It is more of a tool for teams rather than personal use, but I have been using it for personal use and I've actually enjoyed it very much. And I think there are a few reasons why. So I actually posted on X today, I think, that one, like, I am a big fan of the new Tana, mainly because it doesn't feel like I need a PhD to like use the product. The Tana Outliner product is a really good product, but the problem is that I almost feel like I have to watch 10, 20, 15 YouTube videos to understand it, and I literally did. And I consider myself as someone who is quite technical and understands these tools, at least a little bit, because I spend so much time testing them out. And even when I started using Tana, I was familiar with the idea of object-based note-taking because like my main application used to be AnyType. Whole um, this whole YouTube channel was actually started on AnyType. A quick thing about the pricing here, and a quick flashbang warning or light mode warning for those of you watching. The pricing on Tana is actually 25 or 100 when you bill it monthly. It's 20 or 80 if you bill it yearly, and that is the early bird pricing. Once that period is done, it is $35 or $150. So as I said, it gets really expensive if you're planning to do this and do a max plan on Claude or ChatGPT. Even as a business, it can quickly become expensive, even though of course, businesses have more to spend and it is more about what you get back. But as for like personal use, PKM productivity, I think that will get really expensive. So at a certain point, I think you will have to choose, and that's what they are trying to do, because they are betting heavily on the knowledge graph as they've done on the context for the AI. That has been something they've been talking about for a long, long time. That context is important for the AI agents, and I think they did that back when the application first came out as well. When we were doing prompt engineering, I think Tana still continued to bet on context. So I think they've been right on that. I also think that they've been right on the outliner. Like, I think the outliner for a productivity nerd like myself, as someone who spends so much time inside of these tools and are willing to learn or get a PhD in the product, I still think that is the best user interface for something like this. But I understand that this new Tana is much easier to get into. Like, I just opened up the application, I started using it, and it was really, really easy. And it also makes sense that it's centered so heavily around meetings. So one of the things it does is when you have a meeting, it actually not only transcribes the meeting for you, but it starts doing things, it starts moving things around, it starts creating your tasks, it gives you suggestions. So it does a lot of the stuff right inside of Tana. I think the point here is that you can also get started on those tasks. I think they are working on an external MCP, or I know they're working on that. I'm not sure when that will come out, but the point is that I should be able to connect this to many of my tools. Like, I use Typefully for social media scheduling, and if I could just use an agent inside of Tana once something, for example, gets a tag, or gets like, let's say it gets a status of like schedule, then the AI agent could just go ahead and schedule that for me. That is a really interesting idea. So there are many ideas like that that are really, really interesting, and these are the things I'm currently using Claude or Claude Code for. Uh, Currently, they have an MCP integration, so you can integrate this to Claude or ChatGPT or any other AI that you use, but it doesn't allow other tools to connect to this. There are a few integrations, like Linear. It can create issues and track work from meetings. You can connect it to Slack and send messages and list channels for the AI chat. There is GitHub, so you can start Copilot sessions and sync PRs. There is Jira, you can create and update issues from meetings and chat, and there is HubSpot as well. I'm guessing they use a few of these tools internally, or I know they use a few of these tools internally, so it makes sense that they have chosen to start with these integrations. But once the external MCP is out, you could integrate this to everything, and that is also supposed to be the bridge between the old Tana, which is now called Tana Outliner, and the new Tana. And the new Tana has a whole different branding. Once again, I'm giving you a light mode warning, but here you can see that like the logo is different, the whole experience of the application is different, the color scheme is different, like everything here is different. If I click the Tana outliner, you can see that this has another logo. It just is a different product, and I think they are trying to sell the idea of both apps being alive in a year or two, and I am kind of starting to believe it. I like I think a lot of applications are going to suffer from the fact that the browser company did what they did with Arc. I think that is fresh in the back of the mind of many people in the productivity space. So I will have to like wait for a while. I am still not a big believer of running two different products, but as like we keep going forward, it seems more and more that they are going to try to prioritize both. I am, as I said, wondering what will happen in a year or in 2 years, but at least they are trying to show that they want to prioritize both. But I think the new Tana experience is right in the philosophy of like being heavily around meetings, because a lot of people outside of the productivity space, they haven't spent a lot of time using AI agents, and the whole idea of using Claude Code or Codex or any of the other AI tools with local markdown files, it doesn't make sense if you don't even know what a markdown file is. Like you can say that you should probably use Obsidian with any of these tools, but I have said it many times. I will continue to say it. Obsidian will never become a mainstream product, and Tana's goal is to reinvent how humans, machines, and teams work together. I think that's what they always say. And in order to do that, it has to be a mainstream product. So it somewhat makes sense that they wanted to like make the app easier, more approachable. I've always said when it comes to Tana Outliner that one of the big things they need to do is to make the product more approachable. It isn't like I couldn't get. Let's just use a regular team at a company. I couldn't like get my friends. They work in teams in different companies. I couldn't get my family members. Like no one I know would even consider using Tana Outliner, and that is because like the application is just really really difficult to understand. Most people aren't familiar with the idea of outliners. Most people know Google Docs, Word, and maybe Notion. Like that's outside of the productivity space. Those are the three tools people are familiar with, and like going from something like that, Notion is probably the hardest one. But even inside of Notion, first of all, there are so many videos out there. But secondly, most people have really, I would call them easy workflows, or workflows that do not take too much time to build. It might feel like it takes too much time to build, but when you see what some of these productivity experts or Notion experts actually built, most people have really easy to build Notion workspace or database system, or you can call it whatever you want. But there is a leap from like going backslash database, adding tags and filters, to going into object-based note taking and going into the tags and objects and like configuring the schemas. Like it, 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 it is hard. It is difficult. It will never become mainstream. So in that sense, I think they are right, but you are also making a really big bet, because this needs to work, because you cannot pivot towards a product for a third time. Like you can get away with doing it once, but you can't like get away with doing it several times, like creating totally different products. As I said, really like the new Tana, because most of the interactions actually happens in like what looks like a search bar that says ask or capture, which is basically an AI chat. I don't actually interact with the application that much. I go into the search bar and I get the AI to do things for me. There is a discussion on like rate limits, things like that. I have seen some people hitting their rate limits fairly easy, but I think the idea of chatting with your applications and having AI do things for you. I think that is much easier than the outliner because most people have tested out ChatGPT. If I ask my friends who aren't that tech savvy what AI is, they will say ChatGPT and they will say AI chatbots. That's what we are used to. So that whole interface, I think, will make a lot of sense to people outside of the productivity space. Inside of the productivity space, probably not as much. I know just with myself that I like to tinker with my applications, play around with them, and sort of figure out how I want to use them. And like I like having control myself. And I think this is like a direct competitor to this whole AI OS system that a lot of people are building, again, with markdown files, agents, sub agents, things like that, which I have tested out and it works really, really well. Again, there is token limits, things like that. If I look very hard at my Claude chatbot, it will reach its daily limit or its session limit. So if I just look really hard at it, I have to stop for 5 hours and come back, which has been really, really annoying. But the point here is that the markdown files and like AI agent system with the markdown files will never become mainstream. And or I won't say it will never become mainstream, but it is really hard to make that mainstream when people don't necessarily understand what markdown is and don't want to understand what markdown is. Like most people aren't that interested in things like that. Most people, as I've said many times, just want an application that works. So I think this is a better way of doing it. One thing I will keep in mind is that things like Claude, with Claude Cowork, and I heard rumors about something called Copilot Cowork, which is Microsoft's version. Tools like that, they are coming out, and that might be something that can really set Tana on the back foot, because one thing that Microsoft, Google, Claude, ChatGPT have is that they already have a bunch of users that they can push their products uh, to. Mostly Microsoft and Google, but even OpenAI and Anthropic has a user base and actually has a lot of people that love the product. And I see a lot more, naturally, I see a lot more hype in things like Anthropic, OpenAI compared to Tana. So if they release something like this, then it might become a little more difficult. But again, it is not hard, it is impossible to predict the future. As of right now, I think this is a step towards the right direction. I will do a more in-depth video on Tana probably next week or even this week. I have a really hectic schedule currently, but I will try that and try to make that video. With that, I think it's perfect to talk a little bit about my productivity system. So I have started moving from a fully analog system to a more hybrid system. I still use my notebooks a lot, but I have actually introduced project management tools for my own task management, just because there is so much happening and I have this problem of my backlog getting too long inside of my notebooks, and I struggle to get like enough done because there are more tasks coming in than going out or getting done. So that has been a major issue. So what I've done is that I still do daily planning on my analog tools. I still do note taking in an analog Zettelkasten system, except for like project related notes that can be someone telling me how they want this social media post to look or how they want this website to look, things like that. I will keep in the project management tool. But for evergreen notes, atomic notes. I actually use an analog Zettel custom system, and I use that to write a lot of the things I write on social media, on my Substack, which I haven't written in a while. That is linked down below if you are interested in reading some of my stuff. But basically, storage, everything that needs to be stored goes into a digital tool. Everything that needs to be done, or it is active, or I'm thinking about it, often lives in my notebook. I have not had like really strict rules around this, and currently I am playing around with super notes and also Griply, but if this new Tana experience continues to be as good, and I can like remove my Claude subscription and I can just have everything inside of Tana and just pay one subscription, that might be a viable option. Because I really like the workflows. What I can do here is that like I can capture things in my pocket notebook, and every evening, based on a few rules and an agent that I've created, I can like just talk out all of my notes that I've captured, all of the tasks, all of the ideas for social media, things like that, and the agent will automatically just give it the right type. It will, which is basically object, give it the right type, give it the right information like the status, things like that, different properties. It will just do that for me, and it saves me a lot of time planning. So I have really been enjoying that workflow. So that is something I am considering, but it all depends on how my Tana experiment goes. I am going to try this for around a month before deciding, but it has to be like really good to justify the price of, I think it was $80 is what I'm planning to pay the max plan, 80 or $100. So it has to be really good to justify that. So that is again something I am considering, but currently I'm using Griply. I actually just made a video about how I'm using Griply, and much easier to use productivity application, task management tool, or goal planner is probably the best way of putting it. Quick disclaimer, I got the Griply plan for free, so I have the lifetime plan and I got that for free, and that is something I get with a lot of different applications. And I am also a Griply affiliate. I have an affiliate link for Griply as well, so just so you know that. But that has been the application I have been using. I have played around with Supernotes for a digital Zettel custom system, but that is like, I thought I would really enjoy it, but that is more, it feels much more like I'm doing it for a video rather than my actual like use. I really like Supernotes. I think it is an amazing application, but I am like, there is something about the analog Zettel custom system that I am still a really, really big fan of. I feel like I'm better at reviewing my notes in the analog Zettel custom, but that might just be me. I think that covers it for today's podcast episode. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I will try to get to them as soon as I can. Thank you so, so much for watching or listening to today's podcast episode.